Dziękuję Wam bardzo serdecznie, a witam wszech. And now I will switch to English because it is easier for me to just concentrate on the context and not on looking for the words. However, I would love to prepare a presentation in your language also. First remark I want to make is that happy life, happiness, requires explanation. Sometimes I think that happiness in today's world, in our mentality, has become a fetish, has become a guideline which is a little bit too idealistic. However, as words have different meanings, happy life and happiness and happy person can also be understood in a broader sense. I understand the concept of happy life as good life, as life which brings the good to the person and also to the environment. So in this context, I don't have a problem with happiness. Will you follow changing the slides? My slides are a little bit dry. I was preparing them in haste between some trips, so I will try to make the presentation, my exposition, more juicy, so that there is a balance between just dry words and the concepts which I want to convey to you. We have heard today, and we have realized throughout the topic which gathers us all in this room today, that reading to children is very important. I think nobody present in this room has doubts about it. But I want to pinpoint the reasons for this belief. Why reading brings benefits to children. Of course, we have heard a linguist, a specialist in grammar, and a leader in education in England, education of children in England. We have heard other speakers, and we understand that the simplest benefit from reading is just extension and development and enrichment of vocabulary. Just this sphere will be enough to glorify reading, but it's not the only benefit. Through reading, and of course it's not reading the numbers, it's not reading just the letters, A, B, C, D, etc. It's not reading the addresses, it's reading stories, poetic or prosaic, but it's usually, when we say reading books, we mean that what is involved is a content. So it is expression. Through reading, we express emotions. I think this is one aspect, at least to me, why reading to children by an adult, and especially a significant other, like some family member, caretaker, teacher, authority, why it is so valuable. I know why. Because through reading, as you hear me now, I'm not reading, but I can imitate reading a book to you. I express my emotions. So the listener, in this case, it would be a child or children, they respond not only to the basis of vocabulary, they respond to the timbre of the voice, to the modulation of the voice, to the mimic of my face, to the gestures, to higher or lower level of my voice. This way we convey emotions. So it's also teaching, it's showing the children that when we are reading a story that some little bunny was trying to escape from a danger, that the danger awakens our fear or our excitement, and the children will absorb that also. So reading to children by an adult has its own value. I have this example in my own home, in my family. Right now, I have a youngest member of our family, is a 5-year-old uncle, my grandson. And he happens to be this, rare individual that in this age, he already is able to read big books, just by himself. He's very skilled in reading. However, I am not leaving reading books just to him because he can read. No, because for this reason, expression of my emotions and his mother's emotions and his grandfather's emotions and his father's emotions, this is what reading to children makes this process very important. I know that he can read, and he will throughout his life, I hope. But right now, we are still working toward his full development, not only linguistic, not only lexical, and not only literacy related. We are reading because we are trying to help this child develop his emotional skill of adequately responding to the events, to the adventures, to the feelings, and to the experiences that he's reading about. And of course, one very obvious benefit of reading is imagination. We can read about places which we never visit. We can read about creatures which do not even exist. We can read about anything that human mind is able to create. And this way, we show the child the vast and enormous and limitless capacity of their imagination. And of course, this is an easy part, because nobody will doubt that. But sometimes we underestimate this quality of imagination. Imagination is a specific feature of human mind. I don't know about animals because they don't share with me their thoughts, but I know about humans that imagination is something that is our guardian against boredom. It is what helps us to develop. We are talking about happy life, and I am now referring to an interesting life, even though it can be empty of stimuli. Even, of course, life is usually full of stimuli, but if we are trying to see why reading is so rich, so wonderful, and so easy as a vehicle of development, then imagination is one of very important points. And this will combine into an approximation, if not achievement, of an interesting life. Then we are talking about reading to children. We have an adult, a parent, or teacher, or caretaker, and we have a child. And of course, to read to somebody means we have to be in a close contact. We can have a very close distance, and that provides an opportunity. It provides an opportunity, and it also brings a possibility of touching, of hugging, of responding emotionally in this context. When there is a fearsome story, then we get together, we cling to each other. When there is a funny story, we laugh together. So being together, it's like a very sophisticated, intellectual and visceral, because bodies are involved in it, dance between a child and the reading adult. And if even a child reads by himself or herself, this will be missing, this contact, this possibility of sharing the warmth of our emotions. So that's why at least 20 minutes a day of this possibility makes a big difference for the development of the child. Oh, I made myself a note. I am a supervisor to a program of adopted children in the adoptive families. And I have noticed, working with them for a year and a half now, I have noticed that the children who are read to in their families, they are faster in dropping away their fears and their traumatic reactions, responses to some of the past experiences. The children whose parents, adoptive parents, read to them, they are developing a close relationship with the new family much, much faster. There may be some very good parents, some very dedicated adults, but if there is no interaction through reading, the children are slower in developing, you know what quality? This closeness is based on trust. Somehow, probably because the emotions are a reflection of the content read to the child. Probably that's why the trust becomes the basis, the fundament of the relationship. Then it's a cognitive gain, we may say. One of the benefits is simply understanding and learning about different life stories. So I live in this small town, and my environment is specific. And then I read about somebody who lives in Far East, or somebody lives on an island in the lake Tiki-Taki in Peru, or somebody is very big, very tall, and I am small, etc. Or somebody has 3 siblings, and I am a single child. Or somebody has mother and father and 2 pairs of grandfathers and mothers, and some child lives only with a single mother. So just learning about different life stories expands world outlook and the understanding of human condition, not through my own experience, which is basic, but also through developing this broad variety of experiences of other people. Then, of course, I like this part the most because reading together, reading to somebody is sharing humor, sharing suspense, sharing emotions, sharing. We know something that we have come to together, which provides an excellent opportunity, an excellent quality of life. Namely, when we put aside the book and we turn to the daily activities, daily chores, daily routine, and suddenly we are sitting at the breakfast table, or we are walking from the school or preschool together, and just nothing happens. It's a routine. Usually the parents have a repertoire, have their own menu of conversation openers. So how was your day in school? So what did you eat for lunch? So what did you do at the playground? And the child feels often investigated or interrogated and closes up. Well, it was fine. So what was the lunch? Oh, as usual. But what did you eat? Soup. What soup? Good soup. And there is a difficulty in getting through, and parents want it. So the mutual collection of experiences, of adventures, the mutual sharing of the same scope of information, of stories, makes it possible to change this dynamic, this interrogation. And suddenly, mother, father, somebody else can say, you know what, I remembered just now. I see this rainy weather, and you know what I remembered? How muminki were poured down with the heavy downpour. Remember that? Oh yeah, yes, and I was so afraid that they will not be able to find a dry place, etc. It can be referral to our common knowledge, and it doesn't have to refer to the behavior or events or situations in the real life. We have much more to discuss if we have this content that we gained or we retrieved from the stories. We can sing the same songs, we can ask one another. What would happen if this story didn't end this way? What would you rather that this protagonist, this hero, this animal, or this person in your book, in your favorite book, did or didn't do instead of what happened? So you see, it is like opening up the gate to the world which exists, but is not boring daily routine. This is also very important. I emphasize this world outlook. Of course, it plays the role, but it is a byproduct. You don't have to preach, you don't have to teach, you don't have to explain, you know, some people do that in order to achieve that, but it just comes naturally from the description of different situations that we find in the books. Okay, now stop about the reading and I'll move briefly to something which I feel obligated to pay attention to, which is the needs of the child. The needs of the child, they differ. Small child has different needs than the grown child. The adolescent has different needs than a newborn baby. That is clear. We don't have to argue about it. However, if our intention as adults, as parents, educators, active promoters of the idea of reading the books to children, we have to understand that the earlier we begin, the earlier we start introducing the books, the literature, the rich world of vocabulary and emotional content, the more we help the child to develop the skills which are then, in the rest of the life, throughout the whole life, in all lifespans, very helpful to cope with life. Coping is the goal, is the purpose of education, of upbringing, of support to the child. We want all that our children cope with whatever life brings their ways. So the books are a tool. We can use the books as a tool to meet the child's needs. Children basically need healthy nutrition, healthy environment, safety, warmth, encouragement for physical development, protection from dangers, gentle upbringing, and there are not special needs. They are normal needs to everybody. There are also emotional needs, which is love, tenderness, respect, acceptance, trust, sense of belonging, joy. These are emotional needs. Spiritual needs, it's different than emotional, and it's different than religious. Spiritual is what makes the child accepting their own, his or her own existence. It is being ready, being able, and being qualified to always find sense of life. This is spiritual. It can be through God. It can be through doing good and beautiful. It can be through being together with the humanity in this only world that we inhabit. There are also intellectual needs. Intellectual needs are simplest. I think that when we see book and when we come in an apartment or a house and we see many books, we immediately take the conclusion, aha, here an intellectual or the intellectuals must live. Because books are associated with intellectualism, which is very proper. Because indeed, books mean that the consumers of books, the readers, are developing intellectually. So, seeing in this brief overview of the needs, we will be better pinpointing or grasping the meaning of reading, because actually through reading we enhance development of each of the sphere. It's a physical warmth, it is sharing emotions, it is opening up to something that makes life meaningful, which is very spiritual. And then it is meeting the intellectual interest, the intellectual ambition of a very young person. Then I come back to happiness. I don't have a problem with using this word anymore, as I explained at the beginning. But somehow, as you see, when I was thinking of this presentation, of this lecture, I must have had some doubts, and I don't recall exactly, but since I made this slide, I think I was a little bit anxious, so that you wouldn't take me for this sensational person who says happiness is something most important and happiness should be achieved by all means. Conditions of happiness will explain what I have in mind using this word. My question that I probably posed to myself, and now I can direct it to you, is happiness just absence of unhappiness? You don't have to answer, you have to think. The second question, does happiness depend on a great number of pleasures? How happiness relates to pleasure, which is a well-known sensation. Everybody knows this sensation, and we derive it from so many sensual experiences. It's taste, it's visual, it's visceral, it's audio, how to say it, it's auditory. So we have lots of pleasures, but do the pleasures suffice to provide us with a sense of happiness? How happiness, or if happiness, differs from contentment, for being satisfied? Is being satisfied the same as happiness? I have everything what I need to survive. Am I happy? These reflections or questions should lead us to more cautious, to a little bit more thoughtful understanding of the word, of the concept of happiness. Now, almost finally, is it possible to avoid frustrations in life? Frustration, as you know, is not a feeling. Frustration causes feelings, but per se, frustration is just a situation where one does not get what he or she wants, or when one gets something that he or she does not want. It's always something that is spiteful to my needs or my wants. Frustration is a commonplace in life. We get frustrated dozens, hundreds, thousands of times in a span of one day. When I cannot find my glove, when I look at the watch and okay, I am late again, when I want coffee and I get lousy coffee, when whatever. So frustration is part of life, is indispensable, is unavoidable. It's part of life. The secret of good life is to learn how to cope with frustrations. What to do that the frustrations don't shatter my peace of mind, my serenity, my joy of life, my happiness. Frustration turns into feelings. And the same frustration can turn into anger or joy. I'll give you an example. A child walks on a street after a downpour, and suddenly, by mistake or intentionally, steps into a puddle. And it doesn't have rubber boots, just regular sneakers, and of course, water from the puddle pours in the shoe. It's very unpleasant. And it can be a reason for anger. Oh, you stupid puddle, you did something wrong to me. Or it can be a trigger to joy. How wonderful! Already one shoe is wet, let's do it with another. So, we adults we have a role. We have a very important responsibility. Our responsibility is to teach our children one very important thing, that frustration is turned always into a constructive attitude. It can involve difficult feelings, but the attitude at the end should be constructive. Let's do something with it. Whatever. Sometimes it is just as simple as that, I will play in mud, or it can be, next time I will be more watchful to avoid all the puddles. So this part, of course, we can wait for the puddles, And we can put our child in a literal situation with the improper shoes in a muddy puddle, but we can read about it. We can create the virtual situation where the child will have the quasi or transferred frustrations about situations which are in books. So this is how we can help the child to develop a happy attitude regardless of the specific, particular situation. Reading as training or teaching or ingraining responsibility. I should start this slide with the motto. Not all the books are equally valuable. Because, of course, we have to make choices. We have to know the content. We have to create the library of our child, basing the choice of specific texts on our understanding of the meaning of those texts. So good children's stories carry ethically sound morals. Moral as a result of the frustration. Something happens and this is a result. And this result can be taken as a paragon of what's happening in real life. So we should be guardians of the quality of literature. Children perceive the concept of good versus evil in an abstract, non-harmful context. We don't have to expose the child to fire, to convey the message that fire is dangerous and can do harm to you. We can present it in a literary way. So, good and evil, which is the how to say it, which is the framework, the paradigm of all human creation. We also read books, we also watch films, we also see art, which is presentation of this struggle between good and evil. So the children have their own language, their own possibility of discovering, analyzing, reflecting, and understanding of these dynamics. In good children's books, or texts in general, it can be poetry, it can be songs, present the injustices, which is evil, are punished. Or at least should be punished. We feel that it should be punished. We are against this evil protagonist. We don't want him or her to win. We don't like what they are doing to the good people. So this creates a very clear system of values, which is also part of the developmental process. Gentleness should be awarded. And of course, not always that was true. Not always. I sometimes pick up a book, which is a classic, and for instance, Pinocchio, a You know, you all know Pinocchio. And in a very good, excellent new translation by a friend of mine of the Italian story, I hardly can read it. And my little uncle son, he doesn't like it very much, because all the time on the first 15 pages there is fight, struggle, kicking, dropping, jumping, using nicknames, derivatory nicknames. So this is an example of an old-fashioned way of presenting good and evil. And I think a child needs to be more grown up, not 5-year-old, because they, at this age, tend to take the picture presented by the text more literally. Aha, yes, so when this Geppetto wants to kill his friend or his neighbor, then why? What is it? No, they are only joking. But is it a joke if he kicks? So it needs to be explained or put aside until the child will be 10, maybe, or 8, or 12, because you develop gradually all kinds of qualities, intellectual qualities and emotional qualities, to absorb the more sophisticated or more difficult contexts. This is an example that I have noticed myself. Okay, let's go further and we will have to finish. Yeah, now my favorite topic, I teach it even at universities, happiness as a life skill. We should teach ourselves and our significant others and our children, we should teach happiness. And learning behaviorally, psychologically, intellectually, to express humanity and understand other people. If we are good to other people, it will make us feel better about ourselves. We should learn to give and receive unconditional love. We should appreciate and respect kindness and fairness. If somebody is nice to us, we should be appreciative. We should learn how to say thank you, how to show gratitude, even in a supermarket. When I come to the cashier and the cashier says, all right, let me put it for you to your bag, or don't have to haste, we have time, please take time to pack your stuff or whatever, then the child should be understanding that this kindness is a gift, is something one human being offers to another. And of course, what follows is forgiveness, not keeping grudges, not ever saying, I will never forgive him. If you are angry, express the anger. Say, explain, yes, I am angry because I suffered from that or that, what he did. But I will never forgive is another story. I will never forgive is getting stuck, is not developing, is not moving. I think it's not accidentally that one of the most popular, one of the most known Christian prayer says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive our trespassers. So this is a wisdom. I don't know if there is God. I don't know if it is given by God, but I know that it is the most human appeal that should help us live together. Develop sense of humor in order to achieve, to learn, to be happy. As a life skill, you have to teach yourself to put the pink eyeglasses, metaphorical eyeglasses, on the world. And when you see that the bus runs before I get in, it may be a reason for tragedy. It can be a reason for joy. Okay, my bus ran away without me. I can walk and breathe fresh air. Okay, I will be late somewhere where I am hurrying. So what? I will probably not remember that 3 weeks from now. And even if I do remember, now my responsibility, when I have this tragedy that my bus ran away, my responsibility is to look around and look into myself and see where could I get some reason for joy. Oh, I see flowers. I wouldn't have noticed them if I was in the bus. Or I see a friend approaching. Hi there, we didn't see each other for so long. How nice, it's great that my bus ran away, etc. So I have to develop this creative approach, this creative way of seeing what's happening. And many a time there is a good opportunity to even make myself laugh. If I find something funny, okay, again, I forgot my keys from the house and I shut the door. What? Isn't this funny? Is it Alzheimer already? Hey, what did I... You see? So it really depends on your intent. If you want to find something funny, you will. Of course, there are some situations, some moments which are very, very serious, very grim. And then don't make love of them. But how many grim situations do we have to survive in life? 3, 5, 15, tops. All the rest is something that we will not remember 3 weeks from now. So this is teaching yourself, teaching the children happiness, being happy, having a happy life. And one important thing is, I don't know if we already said this today, but this conference calls for it, is the children imitate us. There is Friedrich Nietzsche. I love his aphorisms. He was a terrible man, and he had a terrible life, and he terribly died. But he's left so many beautiful thoughts. One of them is, happy children are raised by happy parents. So you don't have to teach yourself something that you don't understand, you don't experience. You have to teach what you really learned yourself. And of course, this is easier, I think. Control. I am an author of one book, We, the Parents of Adult Children. very good book. And I presented there one main concept, that as a parent, you have no control over your children. Especially women have this, I don't know, I am missing the word. Women believe that they have control. So when the child has bad notes in school, this is my fault. When a child chooses bad friends, this is my fault. When a child marries not the right guy, this is my fault. Not true. There is responsibility for the child, but only very shortly. After the baby is born, and maybe up to 2, I am exaggerating. My children, when they were 1 year of age, they already have their own strong willpower, and it was very difficult to have control over them. But the word responsibility has 2 meanings, two senses. One is responsibility for somebody. For. I am responsible for you, and then I mean that you do what I want, or I have to make you do what I want. And this doesn't work. This is an illusion. This is not possible. There is another word of responsibility, and it's mature. It's very powerful. I can be responsible to you. First, I am responsible for my baby. What I eat, what I drink, what I do when I am pregnant, this is being responsible for my baby. And then how I feed, how I take care, maybe for a year or 2, or at the most 3. Then I am responsible for. But after that, when another person becomes a person, and not an extension of mommy, then I have to learn. I have to unlearn responsibility for and teach myself responsibility to. And responsible to my child is that I am the best mom in the world. The best mom I can only be. Not ideal, but in my capacity, the best how I can be a mother. And after today's conference, if I were a young mother or expectant mother, I would never expose my babies to television until they are 2. Okay. Oh, I would do it until 7, just to be on the safe side. So I can be responsible to my child, because I know, I always will know more than the child, because I am the parent. So I have to use my best understanding, my best knowledge, and not only mine. I have to listen to Sue Palmer, and I have to listen to Irena Koźmińska, and I have to listen to other mothers who happen to know something which I am only learning, and then use it in an intelligent way to protect my child from dangers. So, but this is being responsible to my children. Okay. Develop hobbies, passions, fascinations, favorite pastimes. This is taking from literature the richness of human pleasures, of human experiences. And of course, this is automatic. When a child reads about climbing trees, next thing they want to do is climbing trees. After reading Tom Sawyer, for instance, it's always climbing over the fence. I know that. Now we will haste. Reading as a vehicle to learn. And learning is undisputable value. So through reading, we absorb knowledge. Then the didactic and intellectual gains from reading books are not the only valuable things the book provides. Books teach beyond here and now. They expand, as I said, imagination, but also they can take us back in the past and forward in the future, and in the whole existing worlds or non-existing worlds. Very important thing, as I already mentioned, is that the books can instantly change boredom into an interesting adventure. The books teach us to dream, because developing imagination will turn imagination into our own needs or wants or plans and dreams. Okay, let's move further. Some are simpler, some are... Okay, this already I said that reading requires thoughtful and intelligent selection of literature. This is obvious. I already elaborated on that. Especially things like aggression, which appear in literature, need to be safeguarded by explanation, by providing the moral value to different situations. Yeah, here I quote David Hopkins from one of his books. Parents and teachers are responsible for the safe and secure learning environment in which children can expect acceptance, respect, and warmth from the adults, without having to earn, to strive, to struggle, to want to be awarded by love and acceptance. It is just by being a human being, by belonging to the family, to a group, to school, to class, they are naturally accepted. Happiness should be taught by example, my own, explanation, and this explanation should put attention, turn attention to fallibility, to the specific paradox that being human is making mistakes, and being good human, being wonderful human, is not making mistakes, but improving them and trying to correct what we did wrong. And here I quote one of my favorite, it's called St. Augustine's prayer, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, this bus that ran away, the courage to change what can be changed. Instead of crying, I can play in the mud or in a puddle, and the wisdom to know the difference, which makes even a child a person who makes choices for himself or herself. That helps to be self-accepting. And that all is provided by good books. And now at the end, wishing us all and all our children good and beautiful books every day and everywhere. In Ostrava also. Thank you very much.